Okay, we're going to do some quick observations on the Dragon Ball Red Ribbon Army arc. Of course, this isn't going to be a detailed play-by-play, just little things and highlights that jumped out at me. So, number one is the whole Red Ribbon Army arc is after the World Martial Arts Tournament. Akira Toriyama puts Goku on his own for a little bit. I thought this was kind of interesting when Goku fights the Jiggler. The Jiggler is like a rubber bad guy who you bounce off of. And I know that Toriyama likes to reuse motifs a lot. And so he would reuse this motif a lot of times later in Dragon Ball Z. Oh no, we bounced right off him. And he actually came up with a very creative solution the first time he used this idea, which is that Goku makes the rubber monster freeze they're in the Arctic, so he just breaks a hole in the wall, and once it's frozen, then it becomes brittle, you can break it. And there's also a continuing theme of silly gags, like he's set up to fight Android 8, but Android 8 wants to be good and doesn't want to hurt people, so he instantly becomes Goku's friend after being set up as a big bad guy. So I thought that was a pretty creative solution. Oh, I lost a page. And he finally rejoins Bulma, and it's kind of interesting that after having Goku on his own for a little bit, Toriyama wants to get Goku, Bulma, and Master Roshi back in on the action as soon as possible, and he goes on a little adventure with Bulma and Krillin. Commander Blue, so maybe a strength of Toriyama is he makes memorable villains, and a weakness of Toriyama is he kills them off too fast. So General Blue is a gay Nazi. In the anime, he's a gay Nazi pedophile. He's hilarious. All right. So he fights Krillin and fights Krillin to a standstill, implying that General Blue is at least close to Master Roshi in strength, right? So, oh wow, a guy who could be a worthy opponent of Goku in pure martial arts, plus he has weird hypnotic mind control, paralyzing mind control powers of some kind. So after several chapters of going back and forth with him, he'll unfortunately be killed off way too early before his potential is realized. Any other things I marked in here? Okay. Oh, I also was going to say Toriyama is really good at having MacGuffins and then using the MacGuffins to establish a plot where things are happening. So we've got to get the MacGuffin. To get the MacGuffin, we've got to have the Dragon Radar to find the Dragon Ball. Oh no, there's a problem. So there's this neat thing here where they follow the Dragon Radar to the Dragon Ball, but there's a crack and they can't fit through it. And they conclude that, well, it must have slipped in there, and we have to find access through a cave that we can go through, even though we can't go through here. Just really cool little twisteroos like that always give the adventure side of things a lot more punch. I like Goku a lot better as part of a team than just purely on his own, fighting bad guys. All right, let's start flipping through volume 3. Okay, I marked this because when Goku's on the team with Bulma is smart and inventive, but she doesn't have any superpowers. So there'll frequently be situations like this where she can't cross this booby-trapped room. And what's the creative solution? We're going to extend the power pole and then carefully bring her over that way, as Goku comments on, how come women always take so long? But more Akira Toriyama style goofy, silly humor. The bad guys walk right into the traps and are killed, but the spears only penetrate like half an inch into them, and they're all dead. And one of them even comes awake and says, "We're all dead, sir," just to underscore this fact that are they dead or are they not? Who knows? A nice color page, and look, another Aliens reference. Toriyama would use Aliens references later. For Frieza, he loves him some Arnold Schwarzenegger movies. Jumping ahead to this is just a nice little moment to showcase what an innocent little soul Goku is. A mouse saves him because, of course, General Blue is very powerful, but he's a prissy boy who's afraid of mice, so the mouse freaks out General Blue, and to thank the mouse, Goku saves its life by putting it in his mouth and running around with a mouse in his mouth. Okay, later, he and General Blue meet up with the characters from Dr. Slump, which, fortunately, there's an editorial note explaining that this is his previous manga. Dragon Ball is weird enough that these weird characters from an old gag manga don't stand out too much. They kind of fit in with the universe, but you can kind of tell they're really goofy, strange, unexplained characters. If you didn't know this was Dr. Slump, it would just be like, wow, there's a talking floating baby and two little angels and a little robot girl who's as innocent as Goku and stronger than him, and they beat up General Blue, right? There's a consistent goofy tone to everything I think that's really important because later, when in the Z era, it became like famous for its fights, but this goofy sense of humor, I think, is actually the main appeal of early Dragon Ball, and the fights are a secondary appeal. Mercenary Tao. So Mercenary Tao kills General Blue before General Blue gets to fulfill his full potential, and the same thing happens to Tao. Tao seems like a really interesting idea for a villain. He gets beaten really quickly before he seems like he could fulfill his full potential. So he feels like he's supposed to be like a young Master Roshi who's evil, a martial artist who's greater than Goku. And there's a whole YouTube video essay on this entire chapter. I try not to let YouTubers form my opinion. So this YouTuber's basic argument is Goku's defeat of Mercenary Tao is the first time when Goku just gets a power up that makes him 10 times stronger than the bad guy and blows him away. And that's kind of true, but I actually still like the way this is done. It doesn't feel too much like an ass pull. It feels like Toriyama is basically running Goku through the hamster wheel, or through the grinder for a little bit to toughen up Goku. So the idea is Goku has to climb to the top of this tower. He meets Master Karen, the cat sage who trained Master Roshi, and the trick is you have to get the immortal, the holy water from Master Karen, and he's incredibly fast and spry. So Goku learns it took Master Roshi 3 years to acquire the water. Karen also offers some really good advice. He talks about how Goku is too blunt and just moves and acts without thinking. He needs to think and visualize his opponent's moves to plan ahead. He has to not waste movements. So Master Roshi's previous training was basically, I don't really have any kung fu techniques. My only technique is I make you as strong and as fast as possible until you have inhuman strength and speed. But Karen is also pushing Goku's strength and speed, but also forcing him to think a little bit more. Goku considers stealing it while Karen's asleep, but he's too honest for that. And so eventually Goku tickles Karen to get him to drop it, and then dives for it and grabs it, even though Karen tells him, "No, you don't have to die to get it." So Goku is kind of in a stupid way. He's inventive in fighting. Let's use tickling as a technique. He's very committed and goal oriented. Let's dive off of this giant tower to grab this thing, and he has his tail to capture him. So he's a good kid. He's a very driven kid. He's a happy-go-lucky kid, and he's very purely 100% all of these things. He's a purely good character. So he's endured all this, and the trick is the water wasn't holy water after all. It was just plain water, and the reason he got stronger is all of the training up high in the atmosphere, conditioning his lungs and improving his speed. So it isn't just to like magic drink the water and you're super strong. It's a trick to get you to train to the point where you become strong enough to defeat the old villain. I also thought that the previous fight with Tao was a little inconclusive. The reason Tao won is because he has a Kamehameha style technique called the Dodon Pa or something like that. So basically, I guess the only disappointing thing about this is that Tao feels like he could be a long-term villain and rival for Goku, but he's essentially blasted away the second Goku lands back on Earth. So after defeating the Red Ribbon Army and everybody single-handedly, the whole gang is together finally, and they have to locate the last Dragon Ball. And what's nice is, again, we're getting Goku with a crew of friends, but at this point, Goku is clearly outstripped all of them. So Krillin, who was formerly Goku's rival, goes out like a punk in the first fight. All of the champions they have to fight are jokes on the universal monsters, because there's got to be some goofy thing to it. Yamcha eventually wins one fight and gets beaten in his second fight. So we're kind of pulling for him, and we feel like he's a good martial artist, but he's not invincible like Goku. So he does pretty respectable, but we're already getting the idea that nobody's keeping up even close with Goku's power. After some silly Billy fights with like the devil, who has an evil beam, Goku faces off with his grandpa back from the grave with like a mask and a halo over his head. So Goku doesn't recognize him. This is a fantastic fight. There have been a lot of silly fights before this. This is a very carefully thought out fight in the terms of the martial arts. Every action is carefully thought out, and it works. You can kind of like logically follow through every step of it with your mind. And there's no little goofy BSs right at the end. The only joke is that Gohan, his grandpa, grabs him by the tail and throws him around for a bit because that's Goku's weakness, and he's teaching him a lesson about don't ignore your weaknesses, train yourself to eliminate your weaknesses. And the second that Goku's tail pops off, his grandpa surrenders, and Goku gets a really meaningful, like he's crying and blubbering like a kid, reunion with his grandpa, which is the person he loved most and who he lost. And just the fact that he's so happy-go-lucky, it kind of makes you forget that Goku has had this deep loss in his life. So fantastic fighting sequence. Already we're getting the sense that the secondary characters aren't contributing that much, but Toriyama tries to find ways to help them feel like I'm helping. Look at me, I'm helping everybody. So we all know that Goku's going to keep outstripping everybody for years and years to come. All right, so fun little the Red Ribbon Army arc is a fun little arc. It's very different from the first two arcs. The first little arc, the Quest for the Dragon Balls, very tight, very comedic, very Journey to the West. The fighting tournament arc was a bit more experimental, trying to bring in new characters and experiment with having like story threads throughout a fighting tournament. And then the Red Ribbon Army was back to Goku in adventure mode, and it's much longer than the previous two. Just the Red Ribbon Army arc is about as long as the first two arcs combined. So we get to see a little bit of Goku alone, a little bit of Goku with friends. I guess kind of like a mini fighting tournament arc when the 5 champions battle the All-Seeing Crones, five champions. But I think the one thing I wanted to say is Toriyama's weaknesses with like introducing characters and killing them off and forgetting about his characters in Dragon Ball, it's offset by the charm and goofiness of the universe. It's sort of like it's 90% comedy, 10% action, whereas in Z it's going to be about 90% action, 10% comedy, I think. So 2 really good volumes. We'll do more as we continue, as I keep buying them.